Ciao tutti e benvenuti o bentornati a Learn Italian for Travel. Sono Danielle, and I'm very excited to have a very awesome special guest who we have so much experience together in life for the past 20, is it 23 years, Ileana?
Yes, yes, at least.
Yes, at
Mhm.
least, yeah, or 24. My old former colleague and my one of my closest friends and a current student of mine studying Italian with me. We have Ileana Gantt here today, who just has just such a amazing breadth of experience and depth in terms of language learning herself and teaching language. She was the head of the Butte College Foreign Language Department or World Language Department, I guess we renamed it, or they renamed it. For how many years, Ileana?
Oh, I would say about 12 to 15 years I was chair, and 25 years I worked at Butte College.
As an instructor. Okay, and
Yeah.
that is how we met, is you hired me to teach
Mm.
Italian. And I taught Italian at Butte Community College for 19 years. And so we first met as colleagues in the World Languages department. And then just have had so many beautiful life experiences together after that. I went to Costa Rica with you and your foreign study abroad program that you created in Costa Rica, which was amazing with my kids and Jesse and my son's friend, and then just studying Italian together for the past 5 years or so. So there's so many things that we could talk about today. And I'm just excited to kind of ping pong around, just discussing again the importance of learning language, learning a foreign language, not necessarily focused on Italian, but just language learning in general, and why we need to continue to do that, even though it might be easy to think that most people in the world speak English, but language learning will always serve you in a variety of ways. So I introduced you a little bit, but Ileana, if you want to give some other just background about maybe something I didn't mention about when you first moved to the United States, maybe, or anything you want to talk about teaching at Butte, um, that would be great.
Grazie, professoressa.
Prego.
Ah, ciao, amici. Mi chiamo Ileana Gantt. Sono stata professoressa di spagnolo, um, e attualmente imparo l'italiano.
Brava.
So, yes, thank you so much for that introduction, Danielle. And I I'll start with telling you all that my first language is Spanish. I learned English when my family moved to from Costa Rica to California when I was 9 years old, a long, long, long time ago. So most of my life has been in California, and I have so English has become my dominant language. Um, but when I was in high school, throughout elementary school and high school, my parents always insisted that we speak only Spanish in the home and that we learn Spanish. My mother was a teacher herself, and so she would set up, especially in the summertime, she would set up a little Spanish school for the four of us, and she would teach us Spanish. So uh, it was very important for us to maintain our first language and to develop it and to learn more. So in high school, I had a brilliant teacher. She was from Argentina, Spanish teacher, and she developed a course for Spanish speaking students, for her Spanish speaking students. And this was at a Catholic school, all girls. And she saw that there were several of us who spoke Spanish. And she brought her books. She was studying at UCLA at the time, and she took one of her own textbooks and she developed a course for us. And it was called Grammar Through Literature. I still have it somewhere. And it was my inspiration. She was my inspiration to become a teacher myself, to become a teacher of Spanish and to learn other languages as well. So I decided that's what I was going to study, and that's what I did. So 4 years of Latin and Spanish classes later, I began university studies focused on Spanish American literature and Latin American studies,
Mhm.
and French was my minor. So that's my formative years in language teaching and language learning. So I've, fast forward to now, I'm retired, but I've always thought I had the best job ever, the perfect job, because I was teaching Spanish, and later I started taking students to my homeland and to pursue their study of Spanish and to learn about the culture. So it was just perfect.
It was
And
an
this,
extraordinary experience. Just being
yeah,
able to go there with you, especially, and see the things to have you create the program. It was a very unique and amazing program. I don't know, it felt so homey, everything about it.
yeah, yeah. The program basically, we called it integrated studies because I usually worked with a colleague, and the year that you went, Danielle, we had
Mhm.
Tom Grote,
Yes,
who's a teacher of communication studies, specializing in intercultural communication. And
yes.
so he taught this class in English, and I taught the Spanish, but I was really like overseeing the teachers over there because we have a team who um, provide the instruction in Spanish in very small groups, like 2 to 4 students per group. So it's very individualized, very intensive, and just virtually 100% Spanish.
Yes.
Very, very
I
little
I
English.
learned so much during that time. And I forgot in the introduction to say that another part of our relationship is that you were my Spanish teacher as well at
Yes,
Butte
yes.
College for 2 semesters, and you were a, an amazing teacher. So,
Oh,
one
thank
of the
you.
best teachers I've ever had, honestly. And that it's not just because we're friends, but the way that you communicated everything so clearly, and the variety of exercises, activities that we did, and the emphasis on talking and reading and pronunciation and writing. Everything was just so well-rounded and so applicable to like current life, like in Spanish for the projects that we did where we took a song and then we how it was relevant to us, and we presented it in Tom's class.
Yes.
Just I learned so much with you in Spanish 2 and
Yeah.
Spanish 4.
And Spanish 4 too. Yes, and actually, I have some notes here, and you are definitely in my notes
Oh,
in that sense, because really the point of the study abroad is for it to be a culmination of some semesters. It doesn't have to be any number, any specific number, but obviously the more you have, the more foundation you have in the language, the better.
mhm.
So, so anyway, I consider the study abroad programs really the highlight of my career, and just rewarding for everyone, as you say, as a participant, as a student, rewarding to the instructors, and because you see how the students' lives are enriched, and as their level of Spanish increases, their confidence, and their interest and their respect for the new culture
Yes.
increase as well.
Yes.
And so that's just an amazing um, process to observe.
It is.
And most of the students, even the ones who only had like basic Spanish, were emboldened by their ability
Mhm.
to interact daily, on a daily basis with Costa Ricans using Spanish.
Yes.
And so some of them could only do greetings and basic expressions of courtesy. Others could, like you, could engage in discussions about cultural differences and personal stories.
Mhm.
And so there's a range of levels, and that was another aspect of the program that was so um, unique. I think there were so many different levels, and each student was placed accordingly,
Yeah.
and living with host families and doing a lot of the other cultural activities that we did there. Um, Now the thing is that it's not just good for the students who participate. It's good for the Costa Ricans who participate as well, and the ones who do, like the host families and the teachers and the new friends. They all appreciate the effort of the student to speak Spanish, to use their Spanish, to learn more, and to um, and to just um, show their appreciation for everything that they're doing and learning over there,
Right.
and that results in um, more meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
And some of these relationships are long lasting.
Mhm.
So it's really rewarding that way. And then to see what the students do with that experience later on,
Mhm.
for many of them it's the opening to maybe a career change, a professional goal
I
that
mean,
they didn't have.
myself included,
Yeah.
I changed direction to become a Spanish teacher. I mean, I still teach Italian, but that's my full-time job now. I mean, I teach a bunch of electives, but I got
Yes.
teaching credential in Spanish.
So you're actually an example of that as well. And other students, it's their first. You were a reentry student, a little older
A little
than
older.
the 19 year olds. But
Yes.
for those students, it gives them the a lot of those students. This is really interesting. I mean, throughout my career, I saw this. Many of those young students had never been outside of the state. Some of them had never been outside of the county. They
Yes.
didn't they barely knew what a passport was, certainly
Right.
didn't have one.
Yeah.
And so everything along the way was along the process of getting to Costa Rica was a learning experience, and new and opening doors for them. So getting that first passport, some of them being on their first plane ride, it was
Wow.
just really amazing to
Yeah.
to see those students whose lives really were impacted.
Yes. And you
So
created all of that. You made that happen for them. And that must feel so good when you look back on
it does,
your,
yeah.
your
And I think I
contribution.
I think we had throughout the development of this program, there were some people who were truly dedicated to it,
Mhm.
and Tom was one of those people.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, when I retired in 2021, and it was after the pandemic and other factors, so the program no longer exists, or
Right.
it doesn't exist right now. Maybe it will be renewed, resuscitated later on.
Yeah.
But but it was it was a development. There was a development to the program over the years. It
Yes.
it changed, and it improved in some ways, and we learned what to do, what not to do,
Yeah.
and how to make it more meaningful, I guess, for them.
Yes.
So one of my favorite memories, just in general, um, was, or is still, is watching the students pick up expressions and vocabulary unique to Costa Rica. And I'm sharing this experience because it can be the case anywhere.
Right.
You can be in any country, any culture that is not your own, and um, realize that, oh, they I learned this word for an example would be, um, let's see, in Costa Rica. Well, I have some examples here, but they learn one word, but then they get to the place where especially Latin America, because there are
Yes.
so many different countries and so many different regionalisms that you
Yes.
encounter.
Yeah.
So it's fun for me. It was a lot of fun to hear them say "pura vida,"
I love that's one of
"pura
my
vida."
favorite expressions.
Such a great expression,
And I didn't really realize because I had read about it before we left,
Yeah,
Pura Vida and Costa Rica, but it was just I loved interacting with Costa Ricans where you would even say buenos dias or hola, and they would just say pura vida back. Like that's
right.
like a greeting. Or, como, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? And they would answer pura vida. And I was just like, okay, this is a thing. It's not just like, you know, something that you read about and associated. This is like an active like
Mm-mm.
phrase that is used by Costa Ricans
Yes.
daily.
Those are great examples. Or someone invites you to go have lunch and you respond, pura vida. So it has a range of positive meanings
Yes.
that that encompass, I think, the Costa Rican spirit
Yes,
somehow.
definitely. The Costa
Yeah.
Rican spirit. And another one that I loved was con gusto, con mucho
Oh,
gusto.
yes,
Because
yes,
de nada, everybody says de nada for you're
right.
welcome in other Spanish speaking countries, but in Costa Rica, it's unique to Costa Rica, right?
Yes,
Con mucho,
very
with a lot
much.
of pleasure. And then you really feel that they are taking pleasure in helping you. You know,
Mhm,
you're
mhm.
welcome, not you're welcome, but it was a lot of pleasure for me.
Yes, yes, with pleasure. Con gusto, con mucho gusto.
See,
Yes, that is a great one. And then other words that are different. For example, the word soda. Una soda or una sodita is not a drink.
right,
It's a little place. It's a little restaurant
right.
where they cook uh, typical dishes there, typical meals, Costa
Gallo
Rican
pinto.
meals. Hmm?
Gallo pinto.
Gallo pinto, yeah, and that's another word that's uniquely Costa Rican. So
Yep.
that was a lot of fun, and then to see the students be relaxed and make fun of their own pronunciation or their own mistakes, and then learn from them. That was just a really good process, and it takes um, humility to learn another language,
Yes.
and yeah, humility, and just relaxing into it somehow.
Yes.
And so that was just really great to see. um, okay, then I have to say one of my favorite ever study abroad students was Danielle Di Pietro.
What? Oh.
Absolutely. Who is now my Italian instructor. And okay, we've already said this, but the advanced Spanish skills that you developed in the classroom, Danielle, facilitated your communication with Costa Ricans and enabled you to take advantage of learning opportunities and just fun opportunities.
Definitely.
And I was always in awe of your ability to engage with such grace
Really?
and
Oh,
respect and ease. Just
muchas
yeah.
gracias.
Oh, no,
Muchísimas
it's
gracias.
so it
So,
was such a pleasure to see
oh,
that, and no wonder that's how you are, and then you had a lot of experience in language learning, language teaching, studying abroad
yes,
for Italian,
yes.
and so the more you do that, the better you get at it.
It's true. And then the more that you want, because yes, I have that desire
Oh,
always to
wait, music.
communicate um, or connect with people, and language is the vehicle with which we do that most of the time. I mean, we can do it through dance or, body movements, but most of the time it's through our language. And so that's like another reason why you want to study a language before you go to a place, is so you can have that communication with the local people, because then, like you said, there becomes this reciprocal appreciation of one another, and
Yes,
the culture, and the experience of a shared experience of, you know um,
yes,
all of what we are, coming from a different place. And it's so important as a human, to look at
exactly.
the world in this way, that sees similarities and see the ways that we can connect and develop respect for one another, instead of I'm over here, you're over there, we can't understand one another. So
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just so important more than ever.
yes.
Well, always. It's always been important, and it's um, human communication
Hmm.
and um, connectedness. Being
Yes.
connected is just so critical, I think,
I do.
to our yeah. So anyway, I, in terms of travel, I haven't done much travel because I always go back to Costa Rica. So that's my main travel destination. I also have traveled to Guatemala, to Spain once, and Mexico a little bit, but Spanish speaking countries.
Mhm.
But what's interesting about travel, when you're a tourist or even when you are an expat living in another country,
Mhm.
but let's say as a tourist, okay, you short-term stay somewhere, you meet people from all over the world,
Right.
and I have had the most incredible interactions and opportunities. For example, to practice my Italian in Costa Rica with the community, the Costa Rican community there.
Yes.
Um, in certain parts of the country, there are groups of Italians or groups of Canadians who
Mhm.
have made Costa Rica their home. And so I have been able to to practice and get to know people and get to know their stories too.
Yes.
So I have one story that I like to share,
Yes, please.
and it doesn't involve Italian, this one,
That's
but
okay.
it happened the last time I was in Costa Rica on vacation. Okay, I was not with students, I wasn't working.
Mhm.
And I was on the coast, on the Pacific coast in Guanacaste.
Mhm.
And at the condominium complex where I was staying, there was construction going on in one of the condominiums near ours.
Mhm.
And so I was walking back to our place one day, and I heard like yelling, yelling coming from the construction site.
Oh,
And so I got closer and I was like, what languages, what are they saying? And I heard, I could identify, of course I could identify um, um, English, or not English, I'm sorry,
okay.
French and Russian,
Oh,
okay, and some Spanish, okay, and Spanish. And so I got closer and I saw that it was four. There were no, there were three guys there.
Mhm.
One was on the ground, and two were up on the roof, like changing the roof tiles.
Uh-huh.
The two workers were Russians, and the owner of the condominium was French Canadian.
Okay.
Okay, so he spoke obviously French, but a little bit of English. Okay,
Uh-huh.
not too much English. Then one of the Russians spoke only Russian. The
Wow.
main guy, he was in charge of the project, but he only spoke Russian.
Uh-huh.
His friend spoke Russian and Spanish. And so they could not communicate with the owner.
Yeah.
And so here I come along with my English and, Spanish, English and Spanish.
And
And
French.
so I said, maybe I can help.
Nice.
And so then I thought, oh no, why did I offer? My French is so rusty. I won't be able to say anything in French. I hope this guy speaks enough English.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Russian guy started in Russian, telling the owner some details and description of the tiles and what he was doing and the angles and so on. And
Uh-huh.
so then his buddy, who spoke Spanish, translated it to Spanish for me. Then I translated from Spanish to English
Okay.
for the owner.
Nice.
Okay, and a little bit of French because some of
Okay.
the English that I used he didn't understand, and
Okay.
so and a lot of hand gestures
Yes.
along the way,
Yeah.
and then the reverse so that he could communicate with the Russian again.
Wow.
It was a truly unforgettable experience, and
I
I
bet.
wish I had recorded it,
How
but
long did it take for everybody to understand one another?
It took we were there, a good 25 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, about
Yeah.
25 minutes.
Okay.
And I think there was communication.
Hopefully it was like
Hopefully,
self-indulgent.
but it was this multi-language
I love that.
yeah, yeah, it
That's
was
amazing. Good thing the Russian's friend spoke Spanish, because
yes.
if he didn't, then there would have just been a total like block, right?
That was the key. And
Yeah.
that guy, he had been in Costa Rica
Okay.
for quite a few years, and he had just brought his friend.
Wow.
And I think his friend was just visiting, short term, like 3 months or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
it
I
was,
love that story.
yeah, it was
I wish I
quite
could
a,
have observed it too.
yeah, quite an experience. But the reason they were yelling was because that's what we tend to do when we want to make ourselves understood and the other person doesn't speak our language.
Just speak louder.
Yeah, just speak louder. Maybe they'll understand then. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So that
great.
was a really interesting one. Also, from in Costa Rica,
Mhm.
I was introduced to musique québécoise. I had no idea what that was. It's the music that's kind of like country music from Quebec,
Okay.
and that happened in Costa Rica when I was
Oh,
at a place called the Yoga Farm, and
okay.
there were all these French Canadians there, and they told me about it. They would play this music, and it was cool. And I asked about experiences like that, just um, very unique experiences
Yeah,
that
I
you
bet. I
yeah
mean, Costa Rica is such a destination for world traveler. I mean, there's so many people, like you said, from so many
hmm
different countries that want to go there because it's beautiful. The biodiversity, there's lots of yoga. I mean, you have the ocean, you have like so many amazing things. And then the country is
yeah
just so peaceful and easy to be in. And I appreciated the Spanish that was spoken in Costa Rica. I thought it was just so clear and so
hmm
easy to understand. Um,
hmm
yeah. Right.
Yeah, especially in a more, academic setting, of
Right.
course.
Yes.
But because there is, of course, there's the slang, and there's other people, some people who speak so fast.
Right.
But in general, you're right. Costa Rica and Colombia
Mhm.
have that reputation of clearer and
Mhm.
slower, uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
speech. But now that I'm retired, I've returned to my studies in Italian,
Yes.
and I look forward to visiting Italy. I am the only one in our group who has not visited Italy,
Well, we
but
will
I
go
know,
someday.
yes,
I don't know this summer. Things are a little shaky right now in terms of like money and economy and
I know
world
things,
travel, all of
yeah,
that. But definitely next summer, hopefully will be better, or I don't know.
we have to talk about that.
Yes, we will talk
I-
about that.
yeah,
I
and
wanted to ask you also with your all of your knowledge with teaching yourself and having Spanish being your native language, having acquired English, how is it for you acquiring Italian? Like, what is your process of language acquisition like? Do you find
Mhm.
it easy? I mean, I've heard you say before that it's difficult and it's hard, to remember certain things, but I hear you in class and you seem to have there's little things like, maybe like the vowel on the end of a past participle that's sometimes not right. But I feel like for the most part, you have everything like downloaded
I,
or,
yeah.
words, of course, vocabulary here and there, which is something that we always need to work on when we're studying language. But how would you describe your process of learning Italian?
Well, I love it. I love the process, and I know it's good for me, especially at my age. It's great for the brain. It's
Yeah,
great for the social aspects,
yeah,
and it's wonderful. And I think that being having taught language and being such a grammar nerd, I do focus on the grammar, and I'm not a perfectionist, I wouldn't say, but I like to say it right. I like to write it out correctly. I like all that.
yes,
As far as how Italian relates to Spanish and French, obviously all are Romance languages, and I studied a lot of Latin, so
right,
I think some of the basic concepts go across let's say cross languages,
yes,
um, and have this kind of shared foundation.
right,
Yeah, but having said that, Italian has some peculiar, obviously, like any language, grammar points and irregularities and things like that that I find difficult because they're so different from Spanish or even French.
right.
French I studied so long ago and have not used it or have not renewed my studies of it, that it's there to interfere really right now. So I'm trying to say something in Italian, and the French comes back.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time the French doesn't even
Is
show up.
Isn't that fascinating how that works
Yeah.
though? It's like it's there in your brain and it's dormant most of the time, but then like when you start to learn a new
Hmm.
language, that other language that you had learned before is the one that wants to come out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Never happens with me. It never happens with Spanish
Yeah.
or
Right.
English. I mean, English is my second
Right.
language.
But you're truly bilingual, like completely fluent in both languages. So
And those, yeah,
it's
and
yeah,
those two.
right.
So French is the one that gets in the way.
Right.
Oh, and I love the fact that I I'm improving. I like to see that progress, even though it's very slow for me. It could be a lot better if I did Duolingo every day, and I, studied more, and I read more. But we have such a great class, and
We do.
I love the combination of speaking practice, conversational topics that are um, interesting to all of us in the group, and we're learning from each other and we're experiencing. I have this vicarious way of seeing places, living places in Italy that I've never been to through my classmates. I love the readings, the stories, and the grammar. And so the way that the you structure the class is just very well balanced and very I think the focus of it is giving us a chance to practice. I think that's really critical. And I know that when I make it to Italy, all of these skills will be put to good use.
Yes.
And in the meantime, I'm enjoying the class. I'm enjoying the people in the class. They're wonderful
They're
friends,
wonderful. Yes.
and they're all so patient and dedicated,
Yes.
smart, and
Mhm.
they're all bilingual or plus,
Right.
trilingual.
Yes.
Um, Last semester, we ended the semester with making gnocchi al pesto
Yes.
with you.
Buonissimo.
And well, we made it with your instructions, and then we enjoyed it, and so we get the cultural the yeah, we talk about food quite a bit in the
Yes.
class
We
too.
do.
And so we have the best professoressa,
Oh,
ever. And
sweet.
I am so grateful to continue my language learning journey in my life, because I think that's what I wanted when I was little. I was only, in high school, and I knew what I wanted to do um, pretty much the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So
And
I
it's your
appreciate that.
passion. Yeah. It's such a huge part of who you are.
Yeah, it really is. And thank you for inviting me. I don't know if you have any other questions, but
Oh, I mean, I could talk to you for hours about all of this
mm,
stuff, but maybe just a couple of other things. I was wondering, first of all, like in terms of, do you think that there are some people that are better at a lot of like Italian students or learners have asked me this, like some
mhm.
people have a proclivity for learning language. Do you think that that's true, or do you think that anybody can learn a foreign language, even like in their adult years? I know there is the critical period of language learning development that, children, they acquire a native sounding accent if they learn within, a certain time when they're young. I didn't start studying Italian, even though my family's Italian, until I was in college. So I was 18.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
was an adult. I missed the critical period. But even, older year, like 50, 60, 70, I don't know. It's just something I think a lot of people think, and because I hear them say it often, it's too late for me to learn the
Yes.
language or to, really understand it or something. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, since I'm 71 now, so I can speak from experience.
Mhm.
It is a little more challenging, I think, just because we don't remember as easily, and we just have so many things in our brains, in our lives, in our daily lives. But as far as the natural proclivity, I think there is something to that, and I've seen it. Speaking of adult learners or 18 plus
Mhm.
learners, I I certainly saw that in my students.
Mhm.
Some students came with nothing and picked up Spanish fairly quickly. They
Mhm.
really had uh, an easy what acquisition
Mhm.
stage.
Yeah.
It's almost like they just acquired the language, the truly acquisition, as opposed to the study, memorize, this kind of approach.
Mhm.
So maybe it's a combination of natural ability and learning style
Mhm.
and learning preferences too, and personality.
Yeah.
So everything comes into play, I think,
Mhm.
um, in making it more difficult for some people and
Mhm.
easier, for others.
Yeah.
But I can only speak from my experience with these languages. I don't know about other languages. I've never attempted to learn anything else. I talked about it, taking a Japanese class,
Yeah.
but I've never done it.
Yeah. Well, they still have it at Butte College.
I know. I know. It's hanging on.
Hanging on by a
Hanging
thread.
on.
I
Yes.
know. And I think that's another reason why I want to do this right now, have these conversations about language learning, because if you look at Butte College where we taught, when I was there, Butte offered in our department Italian and French and Latin and Japanese and Chinese and what else did we offer? German. Did I say German?
Yeah.
We had six
German.
or
Well, at one point, I think this was maybe before you came, we did have Russian,
okay.
but that was gone. Um, ASL,
ASL
American
was
Sign
added.
Language, is the
Mhm.
other language.
Okay.
And yeah, but they've been eliminating the
Depending on that.
programs.
Exactly. So Italian got cut. Obviously, that's why I
Mhm.
transitioned to teaching Spanish. French
Yeah,
was cut. Latin was cut. The Chinese program was no, was discontinued.
discontinued.
So
Yeah,
so even, and then people, that want to sign up for their classes now, all of a sudden they don't have this choice of all of these different languages. And so they see maybe
yeah,
the society and the culture, it's undervalued. And then they
mhm.
think like, why would I want to study a language anyway? Because it's not important, because I can,
Yes.
like I was saying, I can just speak English. But it is important. I mean, in many other countries in the world, people have to take a second language, a foreign language, as part of their school process, and we don't do that here. It's an option. You can, but you don't have to, and only like 2 years in high school. Um,
Well, yes, and that's the case, and all you have to do is Google reasons why studying a foreign language is beneficial,
mhm.
and you'll see it helps with all kinds of areas and development. It helps with um, cognitive skills and critical thinking, and it helps you become more. Uh, what I just read something about it helping us a problem solving. It helps with our problem solving skills, and it's not learning another language, because I don't think you ever learn
Right.
any language. It's studying it. It's really appreciating it for what it is, and trying to uh, learn some of it, learn the fundamentals, speak it a little bit, just play with it. Depends on what the reason is that you're taking it,
Right.
but the process is what is beneficial to us. It's not the reaching a goal.
Right. Yep. And in the process, you become appreciative of not only, or, develop all of these skills like problem solving and cognitive skills, but you become, because the culture is inextricably linked with language learning. So then you have this greater appreciation of the
Yes,
culture and the people, and that's
yes.
enriching too, in terms of like food
Yeah,
and
the
music.
curiosity
Yeah,
to
yeah,
and the interest in
yeah,
other people, other languages, and other ways of doing everything. Like
right.
some of the cultures, indigenous cultures in Latin America, the countries like Peru. You probably heard a little bit about that
A little bit, yeah.
recently.
My son
Yeah,
just went to Peru. He was there
yeah,
for 2 weeks, but yeah, some great stories he had even in that short time. And nobody spoke English where he was at. So
yeah,
that,
right.
you know,
So we say that, everybody speaks English everywhere, but that's not true.
not true.
It's
Right,
it's true in tourist areas,
right.
and maybe big cities, it's more common.
Right.
But there's a resistance to speaking English also because
Right.
they people want to. I know in Barcelona and Spain, I came across this. They're very um, proud of their language and the Catalan,
Mhm.
the Catalan language, and they insist on speaking Catalan with you until they realize, oh, okay, you don't speak Catalan. Let's switch to Spanish.
Uh,
But there's if I knew Catalan, I couldn't. I did study it a little bit in college, but I couldn't remember any of it when I was there.
okay.
But if I had, I would have made such a good impression on them, just
Right.
knowing a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's not true that everybody speaks
Yeah.
English.
It's
And
not.
even when they do, like the families in Costa Rica who work with the school, they're told, don't, don't speak English to your host
Right.
students.
Right. They need to learn Spanish.
Yeah, they need to learn Spanish. So there are definitely a million reasons to
Brilliant.
continue to study
Yes.
other languages.
And it's like you said, I want to emphasize this too. It's fun.
Yes.
It's, I said, because I teach high schoolers. And so I said to them, I have my Italian class tonight. And they said, oh, you have a class at night? Like, who would want to take a class at night? And I was like, well, really cool people. And
Yeah.
we have a really good time. I mean, even I'm tired at the end of the day, and I still enjoy myself as,
Yeah.
the instructor. So it's,
It's the highlight of my week.
aw, same.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you
Aw.
for continuing to
Oh, of
to
course. I will
teach.
always continue
Yeah.
on
Good.
able to, and you are all interested. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Ileana, for
Mhm.
talking to me about all of this and sharing
Yeah.
your stories and your vast experience with all of these areas of language acquisition and teaching. And we didn't even talk about, your leadership like at Butte College, but you just have such um your profession and who you are and the way that you've lived your life is all about just embracing language and culture. You're like a walking example of like why you it's important to study to learn language.
Grazie. Con mucho gusto. Con mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Sì.
Sì.
Piacere, piacere.
Piacere.
I want to thank you, Danielle, for doing the podcast and bringing the community together around this very important topic of language learning.
Con mucho gusto.
Yes, sì, 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 sì. Ok,
Va bene.
va bene.
Ci vediamo mercoledì in
Ci
classe.
vediamo, bella.
Bella.
Ciao.
Buona giornata. A
Sì,
presto.
a presto.
Ciao.
Ciao.